imagine this scenario. You wake up on a quiet Sunday morning, you open your eyes, and like the house is just perfectly still.
Oh man, that sounds amazing.
Right. You check the bedside table. There are no messages, no notifications lighting up the screen.
Pure silence.
Exactly. You have absolutely no plans for the day. No one is asking where you are, and no one is expecting anything from you at all. Just pure uninterrupted silence.
I mean, it sounds like the ultimate luxury, right? At least on paper. It's the kind of morning people actively fantasize about during a stressful work week.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the reality of that scenario is actually, well, it's often very different from the fantasy.
Oh, absolutely it is.
You would think we'd all just sink into that moment and, like, savor the lack of demands. But for a massive portion of the population, that exact scenario, that unstructured silence, starts to feel incredibly uncomfortable within seconds.
Yeah, the mind just starts racing.
Right? The fingers start twitching. It's like pulling a hand off a hot stove. It's this physical reflex. And within minutes, what do we actually do? We reach for the phone.
We open up an app. We actively search for a distraction.
Yes. We pull up a video, a social feed, anything to just put a barrier between ourselves and the empty room. So today's deep dive is about that exact moment.
Right. The mission here is to figure out why we do that.
Exactly. We are looking at a text called The Power of Solitude and the Art of Self-Mastery to see how we can turn that silence into clarity. We're going to get into why we run from silence, the crucial difference between loneliness and solitude, and how true self-respect is actually forged when absolutely nobody is watching.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychological mechanism behind that reflex to grab the phone. The text makes a compelling case that people aren't actually terrified of being alone.
Wait, really? Because it definitely feels like a fear of being alone.
Right. I mean, that's the fundamental misconception. What they are actually terrified of is what solitude reveals.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. The human brain, when it's stripped of external input, defaults to internal processing. We start examining our lives, our choices, our unmet needs.
And for a lot of people, that internal landscape
Right.
is just filled with things they've spent years trying to avoid.
Exactly. And they avoid it through the modern world's addiction to endless scrolling, music, videos, you name it. It's a cognitive white noise machine.
Okay, so if we're using all this technology to basically run from the discomfort of our own thoughts, why should we stop running? I mean, normally discomfort is our brain's way of telling us something is wrong.
Right. From an evolutionary standpoint, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, like pain means injury. Hunger means you need calories. So why should anyone intentionally make themselves uncomfortable just to sit in silence? If it feels bad, shouldn't we just avoid it?
That is the exact friction point that keeps people trapped in the cycle of distraction. The problem is that our brains haven't updated their software for the modern environment.
So the alarm is going off for the wrong reasons.
Precisely. A spike in anxiety used to mean there was a predator in the bushes. Today, that same physiological spike happens when we realize we're unhappy in our careers, or, that we've been procrastinating on a major life goal.
So biological alarm is ringing, but there is no tiger.
Exactly. There is only an unresolved internal conflict. And the text points out that this discomfort is actually the doorway to growth. They use this great analogy of a physical gym.
Oh, right, the mental gem concept.
Yeah. When you go to a physical gym and lift heavy weights, your muscles undergo micro tears. The lactic acid builds up. I mean, it burns. It is undeniably uncomfortable.
Right, but you accept that physical discomfort because you know it's building muscle.
Exactly. And solitude is the gym for the mind. Sitting with your unfiltered thoughts provides the cognitive resistance necessary to build psychological resilience.
That completely reframes the anxiety. It's not that you're failing at relaxing, you're actively working out your mind. Which brings up this specific challenge from the source that I found so interesting. It asks, can you sit alone in a room for 1 hour without reaching for your phone?
That's a tough one for most people.
Or, like, can you go for a 45-minute walk without plugging in headphones to listen to a podcast or music? Can you just coexist with your own thoughts without an overwhelming urge to be entertained?
And if the visceral answer to that is a resounding no, it's incredibly important to understand that this is not a character flaw.
It's not.
No, it's a symptom of environmental conditioning. Our modern ecosystem is engineered to keep our attention hooked. We are bombarded with hyper-stimulating content that constantly spikes our dopamine.
So when you remove that stimulation,
Your brain experiences a very real, measurable form of dopamine withdrawal. That restlessness is just your neurochemistry recalibrating.
Wow. So that twitchiness is literally withdrawal.
Right.
But what's for the listener here? Let's say someone pushes through that discomfort. What's the actual payoff?
The payoff is the recovery of your own internal compass. Pushing through that discomfort is the only way to hear your own voice over the noise of the crowd.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Well, it allows you to separate the dreams that actually belong to you from the dreams that society handed to you. Things like, chasing money, status, or attention just because everyone else is doing it.
That is a massive realization. The idea that we are carrying around borrowed desires without even realizing it.
It's one of the most insidious effects of constant connectivity.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because once you actually strip away that noise and hear your own voice, you have to build the confidence to actually trust it.
Oh, absolutely. You have to build internal value.
And when looking at historical blueprints for this, the text brings up the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius.
The Roman emperor.
Right. And I want to push back on this on behalf of the listener. Because he ruled an empire. He had ultimate power, wealth, and influence. How on earth does his life apply to someone just trying to get through a regular workday without checking social media?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, using an emperor as the ultimate case study actually makes perfect sense. It's a paradox.
How so?
Because despite having maximum external validation, people whose entire job was to agree with whatever he said, Aurelius wrote his most profound thoughts entirely in private.
In his journal, The Meditations.
Exactly. He wrote them for himself, not for applause. He was sitting in a military tent on the frontier, holding himself accountable.
So he had all the noise and validation in the world available to him, but he actively chose silence.
Right. And that fundamentally disrupts how we typically understand confidence today.
Because most people think confidence is just social approval.
Exactly. You walk into a room, people admire your accomplishments, they validate you, and you feel confident. But the text argues that is a highly fragile state. It's a loan granted to you by the crowd.
And the crowd can call that loan back at any second. So if real confidence isn't social approval, what is it?
The text argues that real confidence is actually self-respect. And self-respect is built by keeping promises to yourself when nobody else is there to see it.
Oh, that is powerful. Keeping promises when the only witness is you. So like, if I tell myself I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. to work on a project and the alarm goes off and I hit snooze.
Nobody else knows.
Right. My colleagues don't know. The internet doesn't know.
Yeah.
My external reputation is totally intact.
But your brain logs that data point as empirical evidence that you are unreliable. Every time you break a private commitment, you're committing a micro-betrayal against your own identity.
You're teaching your subconscious that your word has no value.
Exactly. But conversely, when you sit in that quiet room, when you face the uncomfortable thoughts, when you do the hard thing in the dark with zero audience, you build self-efficacy.
You are stacking undeniable proof that you are who you say you are.
Right. You're building an internal fortress. Wisdom and self-respect grow in places where nobody is watching.
Which makes them immune to the shifting opinions of the public. I love that.
All right.
But let's ground this in reality for a second.
Okay.
So, what does this all mean? Are we supposed to become isolated hermits living in the woods to achieve self-mastery? Because we live in a collaborative world. Life is about relationships.
This raises an important question, and it highlights a critical misinterpretation of what self-mastery actually demands.
Because humans absolutely need connection, right?
Of course. We are social primates. Our nervous systems are wired for connection. We need community, love, professional networks. The text absolutely does not advocate for isolation.
Okay, then what's the danger?
The danger isn't connection. The danger is depending on connection for your self-worth.
Ah, I see the distinction. Which naturally brings us to the difference between loneliness and solitude. We tend to use those words interchangeably, but they are totally different here.
They are essentially opposite ends of the psychological spectrum.
Let's start with loneliness.
Loneliness is fundamentally a state of deficit. It's feeling disconnected from others, yes, but it's also the feeling that you lack something essential that only the outside world can provide.
It drains your energy because you're desperately casting a net outward for validation.
Exactly. And when you operate from that deficit, you end up in a prison of dependency. Your mood is entirely controlled by likes on a post or the latest trends.
Because if you need the crowd to tell you who you are, the crowd owns you. It's a completely unpredictable emotional roller coaster.
Which is an incredibly vulnerable way to live. Now contrast that mechanism with solitude. Solitude is a state of surplus.
So it's feeling connected to yourself.
Yes. It's not the absence of people, it's the presence of oneself. It restores your energy. It calibrates your nervous system, making you anchored and stable.
Because you have enough internal gravity that you don't get pulled into everybody else's orbit.
Exactly. The text points out that enjoying solitude is the ultimate freedom. The strongest people aren't those who pretend they never need anyone.
Right. They are the ones who can stand alone when necessary. They don't disintegrate without an audience.
That capacity to exist comfortably in your own presence is a superpower. And it's a muscle that only hypertrophies in silence.
So, bringing this all together for you, the listener, the source material has a pretty clear, actionable mandate here. The next time you find yourself alone, maybe in your car before walking into the house or waking up early, do not rush to escape.
Don't grab the phone. Let the white noise machines stay off.
Right. Stay in the discomfort just a little longer. Let your neurochemistry adjust. And ask yourself the hard questions. What matters most? What am I afraid of?
If you can build the stamina to do that, the reward is unparalleled. The text promises that when the world becomes chaotic and others lose themselves in panic and noise, the person who has mastered solitude will remain calm.
They will be anchored to that self-respect they built entirely on their own. It's incredible. But, all this discussion brings up a final thought, something for you to mull over on your own after this deep dive ends.
Oh, what? It's that.
Well, the text talks about how understanding yourself makes excuses harder to believe, right? Because you see what's actually holding you back.
Yeah. The clarity removes your alibis.
Exactly. So it makes you wonder, is the real reason we keep our lives so relentlessly noisy not just because we fear being alone? Are we actually terrified of the massive action we would have to take if we finally sat in silence and admitted exactly what needs to change?
Wow. That is a staggering implication. It suggests the noise isn't merely a distraction, it's an alibi.
Exactly. It's the perfect, socially acceptable excuse to stay exactly where we are. So, the next time the room goes quiet, see what happens when you refuse to use that alibi. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us.
See you next time.